friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel, and probably what will be the last sit-down video in this apartment. But today's video I decided to go ahead and discuss some of my favorite horror movies with you guys. I do have some from thrillers, we got some paranormal stuff, we got some slashers. So let's get into it so that way you guys have a nice list, or maybe a reminder, because some of these are pretty popular, list of like movies you can go ahead and watch for the Halloween season. Or maybe you'll find some that are new to you and you'll enjoy. Because I think one of them, a couple might be translated or a little bit more niche. So let's just kind of get into it. So I'm going to start off with some pretty popular ones. One I adore the Scream like series. There's some definitely that I'm just like, oh, not the best one out of there. But like all of the movies are also top tier and I love them so much. Still not over Scream 6 and Scream 2. Those specific deaths have completely wrecked me for the rest of my life. But if you guys somehow don't know what Scream is, or have never heard of Scream, or just not like a big horror person, thriller person, this is not like the craziest scary thing that you could ever like watch or like enjoy or consume. It's very meta. It does dive quite a lot into like those like little tropes here and there that we see a lot in horror movies and slasher movies. It's very fun. I love it. Like there are definitely instances where you find yourself laughing a lot. Like it's just a good, like I think, beginner thriller to start off with. This entire series revolves around Sydney, who is now being stalked and chased by the Ghostface after a few years after her mother's death. Now she has to figure out who Ghostface is every single movie, as it's a different killer every time, but also what connection does this Ghostface have to her mother, her family, her line, and all that stuff. Really enjoyed the series. It's like a comfort movie for me to watch. It's kind of weird to think it's a horror movie, but like it's a comfort like series for me to like enjoy and watch. I find myself really just wanting to lean toward it. Like one of the first things I think of when I think of spooky season, or when I'm sick and it's available on Netflix or something, first thing I go for. Why? I don't know, but it's just so good and like top tier. If you haven't seen it and you are like a bit of a scaredy cat, I recommend the Scream movies just because they're not terribly scary. They're like very light on the scary factor, I think. The next series is the Fear Street Trilogy, another comfort movie of mine. I couldn't tell you why, but this is based off of R.L. Stine's Goosebumps, so you guys know it's already going to be pretty top tier. This follows a young woman who is currently undergoing a breakup, and during this time period is like where she lives has this curse that happens every few years or so, where the witch of the town, or the witch's ghost of the town, comes and possesses a student or a human and does a killing spree. Throughout the series we follow like basically going back further into the past until the very first one, which is Fear Street 3. I think 1870 or something, but the very first one's set in the present time, and then we go back into like 1970 I want to say, and then 1864 or something, and then also wraps up the series. One of my favorite series, like such a top tier trilogy. It wraps everything up so nicely. There are a lot of like very brutal and sad deaths that you get to watch, and like I just love the fact that there was such a huge like queer twist in this storyline that it was just so good, and I absolutely adored the characters in this series. And like I said, it's like another comfort movie of mine that I really enjoy to watch when I'm sick or just not feeling down. Why? I couldn't tell you, but you know what? It's a comfort movie. It's weird. I know. It's fine. Two more comfort movies, which are weird to say because they're horror movies. These ones are paranormals, and they do belong in the same universe, and that is Conjuring 2. I think The Haunting of something Manor? I'm forgetting the word. And then Annabelle Creation, which is the sequel to Annabelle, but it's a prequel reality. So in The Conjuring 2, as you guys know, follows Ed and Lorraine Warren, the two like most infamous paranormal investigators, as they go to London and help a family out who's currently being like destroyed by a ghost while one of their little girls is being possessed. The second one is Annabelle Creation within that same like universe, follows the scary as fuck doll Annabelle, though not as scary in real life, but still scary, and kind of her inception as to how she got into the doll, like how she became like Annabelle, and how that leads up to the events of the first Annabelle film. I love Annabelle for its wraparound kind of situation that happens at the end. Wraps up perfectly. I love The Conjuring 2. For some reason I prefer it over Conjuring 1. Conjuring 2, it's just good. I recommend it. Like, it's just, like, I don't know why. It's just a comfort movie, and, like, you can't go wrong with any of the Farmiga sisters. You can't go wrong with Vera Farmiga. The next two are also part of, like, a duology that I didn't expect I would ever actually enjoy, and that is the Strangers duology. If you guys know, the first Strangers is, like, very set in one little, like, set in a small home following a couple that, like, are there for a weekend after potentially getting breaking up because he wants to propose and she's not ready, and it's just, nah. But that one is set specifically in, like, a small cabin in the woods, like an isolated cabin in the woods, and then intruders come in and it's all havoc, like havoc everywhere. The other one follows a family as they go to visit another, like, their family members live in trailer parks, I believe. Yeah, I think in trailer parks, or like just very small homes, before the main girl goes to, like, boarding school, and then they are stalked and attacked by, I believe, the same killers that are from the first film. I didn't think I would ever like Strangers 2, like The Strangers 2, just because, you know, sequels to thrillers are definitely hit or miss, especially when there's been such a long time between them. But the second one really was nice. I like kind of the final girl aspect they added to it, and very much like more of an active player in the movie, and it was just, I liked it so much. It was so heartbreaking, but it was so good, and I love the family dynamic that eventually got explored a little bit more as the movie progressed. Really enjoyed it. Didn't think I would. Like, genuinely, like, I see Strangers 2 and I'm like, The Strangers 2, and I'm like, yeah, it's actually, I really enjoyed that movie. The next one I actually found, like, on Netflix years and years ago, and sometimes it does rotate back into Netflix, but it's a Korean horror movie. It's translated. Highly recommend it. It's called White. I think it'll be even scarier now, considering kind of the rise in, like, K-pop and like K-pop fans and everything. This follows a K-pop group who is kind of trying to rise through, like, the ranks and everything, but they're struggling with their image, until one day they find a VHS of a song called White and implement it into their own, like, their own songs, their own practices, and their own, like, dance moves and everything, and find out that this VHS has a curse on it, and that they have to figure out exactly what happened to the curse, why is this thing cursed, and what happens to girls who try to sing the song and, like, use the song for their own, like, selfish needs. I love it. Like, the framing of this movie was terrifying, and, like, genuinely, this is, like, one of the few movies that even today, after I've rewatched it so many times, terrify me to my core because of how everything was just, like, framed and shot, and, like, the mythos behind it. It was just so good, and I highly recommend it if you ever happen upon White on Netflix, on Hulu, or, like, some very illegal website that you are using to watch all of your horror movies right now. Highly recommend this movie. Can't go wrong with it. It's just creepy, it's just scary, like, it's just a good one. The next one's a slasher, I would say, and that is X. It recently came out in 2022. I watched it, I think, when it first came out around that time. This fall, it's very not safe for work. So if you are thinking about choosing this movie for, like, a family movie, like, it's your choice to, like, pick the movie this time, and it's like a family movie, and you're like, yeah, I want to watch, don't do it. This follows a pornographic company as they go to, like, they lie to this, like, this farm owner about why they're there to film their video and to film, like, their movie. Very, like, not unsettling, but it's very weird. He gives them one rule, and that was to not leave the house at night. Now, things happen, and they leave the house at night, and you find out there's a lot of weird shit that goes on in that house of old people, and it just makes you really, really get weirded out by old people. I'll say this, if you don't want to watch old people have sex, probably don't watch this movie. Probably don't watch this movie. But it's A24, and you can't go wrong with an A24 horror movie. They're just, like, I would have put Midsommar and Hereditary on this list had I not just recently put X on this list. But I really liked X. I think it's a very fun and, like, horrifying slasher movie. I do want to watch the sequel thing, Pearl, that just came out recently, but, like, this was just, like, it was so good, and I was, like, terrified, and I don't want to see any more old people in my life. Like, if I'm gonna go to a farm and there's an old person on that farm, I'm driving away. Car's going in reverse and I'm going, we're popping a Yui. We're going home. Because, like, that was, like, it sealed the final nail in the coffin as to why we don't trust old people. And it's also set, like, during, like, I think the 1970s, 1960s, so a lot of, like, that free love movement, lots of, like, we fuck just because. So, very fun movie, lots of boobs, weird sex scene with old people. Highly recommend it. The next one is actually Geralds Game. I read the short story for this one. I recommend the short story too. But this is based off a Stephen King short story, as I said, and it follows a couple in a very estranged relationship as they go off into to a cabin for like a very, you know, like frisky night, and her husband wants to try something new, and that's like handcuff her to the bed, and then he dies mid-coitus. And now she's, you know, she can't reach her phone, she has no way of getting out of this very terrifying situation of her, like, arms, like, physically chained to a bed, and her husband decaying on top of her. I watched this this film on Netflix. I think it's still on there, because I think Michael Flanagan filmed it. Because Michael Flanagan, we love Michael Flanagan on this channel. But highly recommend it. It's very creepy. If you're not huge into gore, like, it's not creepy, but it's like very paranormal, very psychological. But if you're not huge into gore, I suggest maybe putting this one off. There's a scene toward the end, I'm not going to spoil it, where things get quite messy. I'll just leave it there. The next one is another, I guess, like, I can't even say slasher. I guess it's part of, like, that weird category that popped up during the early 2000s, post 9/11, like the torture porn category, where you see, like, Final Destination, and that is the Saw movies. Now, all of them are great. Now, all of the Saw movies were great. I saw the newest ones that came out, I think, back in, like, 2016, 17, I want to say, closer to 2018, I believe. That one was a weird one. We don't talk about her. But, like, I think Saw 1, 2, and 3 were pretty top tier. I really enjoyed the Saw series. It's just, like, very, like, it's like one of those morality question kind of situations that have you, like, questioning what is going on, why is this happening, like, who is demented enough to do this, like, who is demented enough to not do this. Like, it's just a weird balance, a question of morality, and lots of gore. Like, I'm not a big gore person. Like, I can handle gore, but I don't know, something, like, for me, when I see gore, I can handle it, like, visually, but then, like, when you add squelching to it, I can't do it. I'm a weakling when it comes to the squelching. But the next one's another slasher series, and that is I Know What You Did Last Summer. I watched these, I think, 3 or 4 movies in great succession, because they were all on Netflix. I think they still are. And then I watched the TV show that was like a remake of it on Amazon. Not as great, left a lot of plot holes open, and it got canceled. So no season 2, no closure, no nothing. But it follows a group of teens one summer after, like, graduation. They're all off to do their best thing, best lives. Then they're driving around, and then they accidentally hit someone. And instead of going for help, they, like, kind of, you know, shimmy his body off a cliff. Now, a year after, when they're all back from college and, like, kind of reunited, so to speak, the killer, who was starting to pose as the person that they killed, is popping up and starting a string of murders, all of which include them. The first one is top tier. I love the first one. The first one was amazing. I think second and third one were a little bit on the iffy side, I'm not gonna lie. Plot was still fun and it was still entertaining to watch, but it was definitely just like, okay. The next one is also another Netflix one that you can watch. Another comfort movie for me, and that is Hush. It is a thriller following a young deaf author who is kind of secluded in a cabin in the woods, like this is her home, and she's like tippy-tapping away trying to write a novel. That is until an undefined killer comes to her after murdering her, like, neighbor, and comes to kill her. I like this. I love this movie. It, like, played a lot with, like, the concept of, like, sounds and the lack of sounds that she often hears. We get to see kind of, like, Mike Flanagan's, like, favorite actresses to put on there, one of which is his own wife. The other one we see a lot in a lot of his TV shows. If you ever watch, like, Haunting on Hill House, blanking, Midnight Mass, Bly Manor, highly recommend the cast. But this one is like a favorite of mine solely for the purpose that we never like it's just a good slasher. Like we never get to a purpose. I feel like nowadays a lot of like writers try to like explain out why this killer is doing certain things, and I just like the fact that this killer from this movie just kills for fun. He does not have a rhyme or a reason. He didn't track his kills or anything, or the people he was going to kill. He just did it because he wanted to and he had fun with it. We never got a why, and I like that in a serial killer. God, that sounds so bad out of context. But I like it in like a thriller killer situation where you never really know why. You don't get the long drawn out explanation. It just happens, and it was good. Highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Again, it has Mike Flanagan's like favorite cast of characters, and you'll see them pop up over and over throughout all of his works. So if this is like your introduction to Mike Flanagan, have fun, because I also recommend the rest of his stuff that's on Netflix, which is Haunting at Hill House, Bly Manor. I haven't seen Midnight Club yet, but that's on the list. And then Midnight Mass. Highly recommend them. The next one is actually on Shudder, so if you guys don't have a Shudder subscription, I'm so sorry. But this is See For Me. This is kind of along the same lines as Hush, only it follows a young blind girl who does like skis competitively, and then now that she's kind of, you know, blind and can't do that, she is now just kind of dog sitting for or house sitting for families. That is until one of the places that she house sits for gets a break-in, and now she has to use the app that she uses to like see, you literally physically like call an app, and like they will like video call you and tell you like, okay, so it's like to the left, to the right, like there's a doorknob, to help her escape the night and try to survive. I really enjoyed this framing. Again, it's just such a fun like frame in terms of like playing around with how much you can see and kind of like how well the actress worked with like that visual impairedness. Loved it. It was such a fun and like terrifying thing to watch, but it was so good, and I like the fact that like we are starting to get like a little bit more like I guess playing around a little bit more with disabilities in horror movies. And I really enjoyed the fact that we got Hush and then like See For Me. Highly recommend See For Me. It's a fun one. Next one is The Lodge. This is a psychological thriller following two young kids and their like I guess future stepmom or his dad's girlfriend as they are stuck in a lodge for the winter time during Christmas. There's a weird vendetta going on because the mom of the two kids committed suicide because the dad was cheating on her or left her for the younger girl, I believe. It has Riley Keough in it. We get Noah Schnapp, I believe, is who is on this list. It's a very creepy watch and definitely gives you very apocalyptic vibes. It's terrifying, and like when you see the snap, it's like frightening, and I highly recommend this movie. It's creepy, it's like scary. Freaked my boyfriend out when I made him watch it. It's great. The second to last one on this list is The Exorcism of Jane Doe. I think this is still on Netflix. It is a paranormal horror following a mortician and his son as they are now having to like cut open and figure out what happened to this deceased body who is named Jane Doe because they don't know who she is. It's terrifying. Like the amount of like psychological things that go into this movie that happen, and like the heartbreaking aspects of this film. It was so good. I was immediately terrified, and like I like the very limited setting. It gave me like kind of like the Mortician vibes of like the video game, but it's just such a good horror movie. Like I will never stop recommending this horror movie. It's such a good one. Like I think I need to rewatch it, but it's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And the last one is a Jordan Peele classic, and that is Get Out. This follows a young black man as he and his girlfriend go to have time, like meet his girlfriend's family, and finds out there's a little bit of a racist thing going on there. But aside from the racism, there's more creepy things going on in there. Everyone and their mom knows how good this movie is. Like, it's fun. That's not fun. I shouldn't say that. I don't know why I'm saying fun. Everyone and their mom knows how good this movie is. It's creepy. It discusses a lot of like points of like racism within America and like the anti-blackness that's going on within like the American frame, and like how white people and like Asian people are implicit in it. It's just good. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I don't remember it being spectacularly gory, so you guys should have, if y'all are afraid of gore, you should have a good time. This is a good thriller. not that scary at all, and there are some like very good like comedic timing moments, I think I would say, from my memory of the movie, that like help break up kind of the terrifying moments. But also Jordan Peele is just an amazing director and producer, so I highly recommend it if you haven't, and I highly recommend every one last of his work. But that is it for the horror movies that I would recommend for y'all to start or pick up or watch or rewatch or remind you of for this spooky season. If you guys enjoyed this one and want me to do more recommendations on other things, like I can do other genres as well, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to do those. But until next time, hopefully you guys are having a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!